I was thinking about pictures that I was seeing of kids in Syria, in war-torn zones. And you're looking at these kids. And again, I cried out loud, imagining my own son in the van after a bomb explosion, watching his, father die, or his siblings die, or losing his friends. It's something that we are not capable of fathoming. But if you actually put a 7-year-old in that situation, the look that I saw in these kids' eyes basically said, it is what it is. It was, and I've experienced that with my own kid when he gets, like, my 3-year-old 2 years ago, who's now my 5-year-old, she was burned really badly with like hot chocolate and coffee that just peeled off her skin. So you could actually see just her fragile skin had just peeled off. And she was the happiest little kid. She was just going along with the punches.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
She accepted it.
So it's kind of dramatic to sort of realize that children don't say, "Oh, I could have it better." They sort of embrace the moment, not embrace, but sort of accept the moment, and then they can have moments of pure joy in a horrendous war-torn country. And, like so many people from, these war-torn countries basically say, oh, you think you Americans are going to just come and just send us a bunch of aid and food, etc.? Yeah, sure, that's helpful. But what do we dream of? What do we struggle for? We struggle for love. We struggle for meaning. We struggle for, emotions and friendships. We struggle for the same things you guys struggle for. We're not just like every day waking up and saying, oh, I wish I had more food. No, that's just a given. I just don't have enough food. But what we struggle with are basically everything else. And that sort of gives you some perspective on life. It basically says, and another story that my mom told me when I was a kid is this story about sort of this man who's basically, he sees the Christ appear in front of him and he says, oh, Christ, I'm carrying all these problems. I'm carrying this big bag. Can you please take it from me? And he's like, sure. Let me just give you any other bag. And basically, and of course the person in the end accepts his own bag.
So acceptance, ultimately,
basically,
the path you recommend is acceptance.
Every single other bag is probably worse. It's the evil you don't know versus the evil you know. Like, we all struggle with our own problems. But if you look at the bigger picture, it's just your path through life. And if you embrace it, the good and the bad, every single day, it's just joy, elation, sadness, misery. If you don't have both, you're not a complete human being. You can't, the last example I'm going to give is the movie Inside Out by Pixar. Beautiful movie.
Which one is that?
The one with the little characters controlling
the
Riley's
emotions.
brain.
Oh, great movie. Yeah.
So you basically have joy and sadness and fear and disgust, etc. And the moral of the story, if you remember the movie, the moral of the story is that in the end, joy is basically trying to fix everything, to make everything happy. And she's failing miserably, and everything else is like crumbling and falling apart. And the little girl basically becomes emotionless because all she knows how to do is fake happiness. And I think it's a very good analogy for our everyday society, where we're always saying, are you happy? Are you happy? My mom calls me and she's like, Manolis, are you happy? I'm like, Mom, stop asking this stupid question. No, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
What you should be asking is if I'm fulfilled.
Yeah.
And that's a very different thing. I don't go around being happy.
I would love it if your mom called and said, Manolis, are you suffering beautifully? Or something like that.
That's exactly right. That's what she should be asking. Are you struggling to achieve something great?
Yeah.
That's the question that mom should be asking. Not,
hear
are you
that,
happy?
Mom? Call me about the suffering, not about how good are you doing.
So what I tell her is that life is not about maximizing happiness. Life is about accomplishing something meaningful. And accomplishing that meaningful thing cannot come from a series of joyful moments. Yeah. It comes from a series of struggles, of successes and failures, of people being nasty to you and people being nice to you, and embracing the full thing. And if you supersede that constant need for gratification, if you supersede that constant need for kindness, you suddenly know who you are. And what I like to say to my kid, and my son the other day was telling me, oh, so-and-so called me such and such. And I'm like, are you such and such? He's like, no. I'm like, haha, see, they were wrong. And what I tell him is, if you know who you are, what other people say about you only teaches you about them.
Yeah.
So it has no influence on your self-esteem. If you know where you stand, you embrace the good, but you also embrace the bad. I have plenty of bad, and I'm embracing it. I'm a procrastinator. How do I deal with that? I trick myself into procrastinating about mindless, stupid little day-to-day things, and in that procrastination time, doing important things for the future.
So accepting who you are.
Accepting your flaws.
Accepting the whole of it.
Accepting the struggle. Accepting the sleeplessness. Accepting the fact that the journey is what matters. Hoping that your path to Ithaca is full of troubles, because those troubles are the life you will lead. Accepting that life will not start after the next milestone, that life has already started a long time ago. And what you're experiencing now is the life. This is it. It's not some kind of future thing that you work yourself hard to get to. And then after that, you live happily ever after. To me, the happily ever after, that's the end of the story. Nothing happens after that. They struggled and they struggled and they struggled is much more interesting story than they lived happily ever after. So I think we have to embrace that as a society, that it's not just about the happy ending, that our kids are brainwashed into expecting that things will be happy and rosy. And it's okay if they're not. And they should keep struggling, because the struggle is the journey, and the journey is the meaning of life. It's not the end, it's the journey.